Hello, everybody. This is Matt McQueenie, Mix Minus Podcast. It is Sunday, June 11th, 2017, nearly 2:30 p.m. I have been a little lackluster in my podcast production lately. It's just been the way the different things I've been going through have fallen. I've had some sick spells. I've had some podcasts that happen in the week. I've had some timely podcasts. I've just had life going on. And so this is a little bit of a hodgepodge. I'm also going to have a podcast a little later today about the Apple Worldwide Developer Conference that they had last Monday, where they announced a lot of their new initiatives, software, hardware, and I'll bring on my friend Dan Morris to talk about that. But I just wanted to kind of talk over a lot of the things I've been going through lately, a lot of different subjects. This will be like a personal journal essay type of deal, which I do often partake in on occasion. So, I don't know about you. I have a son, 2.5 years old, the joy of my life. I love the kid more than anything. I could not imagine a life without him. But before having a child and before being married even, but not even being married this didn't get lost in the shuffle, but you just had your own time. And I know that sounds selfish because as a parent, I am fully invested in my son. I am completely engaged with him. I might look at my smartphone here and there, but I quickly notice myself, I'm almost outside of my body looking at myself do that when he's trying to interact with me. And I am there to be his caddy. I am there to be the person who will teach him all the lessons as he grows up. And one of them is to pay attention to folks when they're talking to you and to be fully immersed in the unrequited love that comes with the parent-child relationship. They make you melt, these kids. They really do. The way they seek you, the way they find comfort and solace in your arms, the way they engage with you and want to engage with you, and brag to you about themselves and talk and grow. And it's an amazing thing. It really is. But selfishly, I was always somebody who spent a lot of time with myself, and that was not self-centered things. I would read all the time. Weekends were my reading time. I would get up. My wife and I would get up together, and we would probably go to the gym immediately. We would go work out without eating. So even on a weekend, we'd get up at maybe 7:15, 7:30, get on some gym clothes, hop in the car, and head to whatever gym we were frequenting at the time, whether we were living in Edgewater, right on the Hudson River there by the George Washington Bridge, and we had 2 or 3 gyms we frequented at the time, or out here in Sparta, where we were a part of 2 or 3 different gyms. We are serial gym type people. I don't know why that is. We just try different ones. Whether it's the price, whether it's the convenience, whether it's pulling back because we have a gym in our basement and then coming back because of some incentive that's involved that makes the gym very affordable. But we've always been people who worked out immediately in the morning. We would just get up and go. It was our thing. We would make a Keurig. I'd make a coffee. She would have a tea. And we would just make our way to the gym. And then we would work out and do our cardio, and then head back home and make a nice breakfast and lounge and be leisurely and all that and all that. But I would get so much reading done because we would get in the car to head to the gym. And as I said, we'd get there and then I'd be working out. Maybe I'd be listening to podcasts, but then I'd get on the cardio machine and I would read about, however long I was going to do that cardio session, 30, 40 minutes. I got to the point where I could just read on the cardio machine. When I'm running, I can read, and that's the beauty of an iPad. And before that, when I had a Kindle, it was the beauty of that. Because they are digital devices, and it's not an actual hard copy book or magazine where you can't change the typeface, where you would have to turn the magazine, you would have to have something that secures the magazine to the cardio interface screen. It's not conducive to that. But with a digital device like a Kindle or an iPad, you can put that directly on that interface, and many times they have the little holder where you can actually stick something right on there. And I think that holder is often there for people who want to walk, because reading and walking is real simple. But I got to the point where I can read and run, and so I will go for 30 or 40 minutes. And for me, I do about a mile every 10 minutes, which is about a 6 mile an hour pace. I will jump it up. Actually ran outside at the local track here, Jefferson High School track, right in the mountains there. Beautiful. I ran there, and for whatever reason, I was just booking it. I guess not being on a cardio machine, just running around. I was listening to the Nerdist episode with Bill Burr, so that was really nice to listen to. But I did like something like a 6.6 maybe, 6.8 miles per hour. So I don't know if that's untrue or whatever, but that's pretty much my pace when I'm on a cardio machine. And the beauty of reading on a cardio machine, it just melts the time away, and the running engages your mind, almost like you're taking hits of espresso or drinking a coffee while you're doing it. And I have had my coffee before it, because that's the thing I do. But you're so focused in on what you're reading that it's allowing the miles to melt away. But then when you're running, it focuses you in even harder on what you're reading. It is like a virtuous cycle. It is absolutely amazing. But I would get so much reading done in that 30 to 40 minutes. You could clear the front page of a newspaper, or the equivalent of that in a digital arena. And I would just read and read and read. And it's funny, because when I started this whole reading thing, what I would do, I would have the Kindle. And that was how, because it was sort of pre-iPad. Because it's crazy to think that only came out in 2010, the iPad. Feels like it's been around forever. But pre that, I would read my Kindle. Now I read the Kindle as my book device. But I would read New York Times on it. I would read The Economist. I would read different magazines and periodicals on there. But what I did at first, because I didn't believe there was any way I could run and read, I was like, I don't think that's going to work. I'm going to fall off. I'm going to lose my balance. It's going to be too hard to do, because your head's moving around and it's shaking. It's going to be just too hard to do. So when I started, I would listen to the Kindle, and what they had was the text-to-speech reader. So anything you have on your Kindle, you can have the default text-to-speech reader, which is very robotic, but it's still there. And so I would be on a cardio machine, and I would listen to the Kindle reading me the different articles. And then I noticed one day, when you're on a stair stepper, it's a lot more in control. You're not going as fast as you are running. And I noticed when I was on the stair stepper and I was listening that I could actually follow along and read on the Kindle. And then it sort of morphed into a place where I went, oh my gosh, I can just read full time on this. You can make the text as big as you want. All you have to do to move to the next page is hit the right side of the screen or the left side of the screen and go back. Voila, it's perfect. So that has birthed an amazing thing for me, where I get so much reading done when I run or use the elliptical or use the stair stepper. On the Peloton bike we have here in the basement, you don't do it because it's a program where you're actually in a class watching it on the video screen. But I get so much done. And so we used to do that, my wife and I. And she got to the point where she can actually read on the treadmill as well, which is good. So we're like a super couple. People are always like, oh, I don't know how the heck do you do that? And I said, just try it. You can do it. I mean, I'm a balky runner and I can still do it. I just rely on that running time to get a lot done. And now more than ever, when I have a child, I have to read in that time or else I'm not reading. Because pre-child, we would go to the gym. I'd get all that reading done. We'd come home, we'd have breakfast, and then after breakfast, we might go our separate ways. Well, not our separate ways. She might do her little chores. I might do what I'm going to do. I would sit on the couch and I would read even more. So I could clear so much reading, and I got to the point where that felt necessary to me. It was like important to be that up to date and clear all these different newspapers and magazines and queues of articles that I'd saved. And then we would often go down to the pool afterwards when the weather got a lot nicer. The pool at my co-op we lived in Edgewater there. And so you sit there and you just continue to read. And I would just read and read and read. I would have time to contemplate and think and go through my week and go through all the different things that are going through my mind. My wife and I could talk. And then we'd come back up, you take a nice shower, and then we worry about dinner. It was a nice life. It was almost like a reverse retirement, like we're empty nesters in a way. And again, I can't tell you how much I love having a child. Absolutely love it. But it's amazing once they get to the point where they're more cognizant of the world, where they're talking, where they're seeking engagement on a regular basis. Because you really have a period in the beginning when a child's born where they're sort of just furniture. They're in the house. They're in a bassinet. They're just kind of hanging around in in a little pack and play, or they go to sleep. They sleep a lot of the day. That's always a big shock. When you get home with a baby initially, you think it's going to be this thing that flips your life around. And it really doesn't very much initially because they don't move. They don't do anything. As the male, you're not really as involved except giving a bottle, but your wife might be breastfeeding, and so she's feeding them the majority of the time. So yes, you got to get up in the middle of the night at the timed feedings and do your duty, which is to go, for me, was to go get my son and present him to my wife for the feeding. And then at the end of that feeding, which can take 40, 45 minutes, so I would go back to sleep or I would read, I would just get him, burp him, and then put him back to bed. But he's always been good overnight. So initially, there's really no change to your life. They're just the furniture. They're in the background. You just have to do basic timed schedule things with them. But then they get older, and then they reach a point where they're starting to crawl, they're starting to move. And those are the points where you really have to pay attention, like life and limb is in peril, because you just never know what they can get into. They move quicker than you think they can move, and they're in a danger spot because they're not experts yet in crawling or walking. So that initial point is you always have to be the training wheels around them to make sure they don't get into trouble. Now I'm at the point where my son is pretty self-sufficient, but he wants my engagement a lot of the time. He will go and play with his cars, but then he says, sit on the wood, and I have to sit on the wood, and I have to open my legs, and I have to allow him to send the cars. He loves these cars. You know, they roll them back, and then the spring shoots them off. And so he'll send them to me. I have to send him back. He loves doing this. He'll want to read. He'll want to watch Daniel Tiger on TV. And often that's a great time because Daniel Tiger comes on and I can kind of read some of the things on my phone surreptitiously, because if he notices I'm doing something for myself, he demands my attention even though he's the one watching TV. But I think when you get to this point, it's kind of difficult to reassert your individuality anymore. And again, by individuality, I mean my own personal space of podcasting and reading and any kind of side job things I might be working on, watching television shows, watching movies, working out, staying up to date on pop culture and politics and current events and all this stuff. Now, is that important in the grand scheme when you have a child and you're raising your own little government here? No, but when your mind has been primed for many years to be at that place, it's hard to just know that's where you were and to turn it off. It's very difficult. And when you're in the midst of having your son and you're working with him and playing with him and doing all that stuff, you really can't sneak glances at things because glances always turn into something more. How do you glance at Twitter without just flicking up the screen? And if you flick up the screen 2 or 3 times, how do you not find 5 things that you're interested in looking into? And then it gets your mind racing there. So really the best case scenario is you got to turn that thing away, not turn it off, but kind of put it to the side and not engage with it one bit. One thing I've actually done is I have always subscribed to magazines, newspapers, and, I have my books and all that stuff. But with my magazines, what I've done now is I make sure to not only get the digital edition of a magazine. So if I get the New Yorker, I don't only get the edition I can get on the iPad. If I have the Atlantic, same thing, Harper's, any of these magazines, Sports Illustrated, I will get the subscription plan that gives you the hard copy, which always comes with the all access digital as well, because I can then have those come to the house and I feel a little bit more honorable reading the magazine, the hard copy magazine, as opposed to looking into my phone or looking into my iPad. To the child, it just looks like you're looking at your digital device. It looks like you are looking at the device that when they play with, they're watching their TV shows, they're playing around with, they're doing games, so they don't think you're serious in this. I find by having the hard copy magazine and I read it, he sees that, he understands I'm not doing anything else except reading a magazine. And on top of it, it's never more money to get the hard copy. Sometimes it's even less because they want to have the impressions or the subscribers on the digital plan, and they really want to have the subscribers for advertising in the hard copy. So often you get a discount by having both. But I do that to try to go against that. But still, I'm not going to read a New Yorker article when I'm with my son. That could take 30, 40 minutes to read one of the real long ones. That's where I will use the treadmill. I will go on those machines to try to read. You need that dedicated time. And a lot of those long articles, you don't want to piecemeal through different points. You want to really have read the lion's share of that in the moment you're reading it. It's very important to me to kind of clear that deck of that article of what I'm feeling in the moment, how I'm taking it in. I want to clear that whole piece right there. I want to knock that out. So it's not conducive there. It's conducive certain things, like I read the Axios morning newsletter by Mike Allen, who used to be at Politico, and it's great. It's a little morning tip sheet where it gives you. It was actually developed for the phone. He's always had this newsletter that he sends out, and it's sort of behind the scenes on what's going on in Washington. It's leading the day. It's saying all the things to keep your mind on. What's the most important piece? What's going on in the administration? What's, on all sides, Democrat, Republican. It's really good. And they developed this new one, this Axios website and newsletter, so that pretty much each story could fit in the screen of an iPhone. So it's little tidbits. It's very good. You can clear that when you're with a child. But again, I'm sitting here going, man, this is the hardest part. It was so important to me before to read. And I'll tell you, when I get to the weekend, it's a little more stark. Because at least during the week, I am completely engaged with my son, obviously. But Monday, Thursday, he goes to school. So I get him up around 7:15, and then we have to be out the door for school about 8:05, because I drop him off about 8:15, then head on down the street to get my coffee and actually read there before heading to work when the traffic has cleared around 9 p.m. But we have that. So it's like an hour, and it's a mission. We get our pancakes for him. He loves his pancakes on school days, and then we get him out the door. The other days of the week, same time getting up, 7:15, although sometimes he'll linger in bed till 7:30. And then my mom comes Tuesday, and then we have our nanny Joan come Wednesday and Friday. So they'll come around 8:45 to 9, or around 9 a.m. And then I'm on my way. I do a few chores around the house, but then I'm on my way to work. So that's about 2 hours. But it's sort of this terrible feeling where you love being with your child in that time, but then you're passing him off a little bit, and you can go on with your adult life. It's kind of a terrible feeling that you might look forward to that a little bit, because you do come front and center with that on the weekend. On the weekend, the nannies are mommy and daddy, and that's the way it should be. But on the weekend, it used to be, as I said, that was the time where you can recuperate. That was the time where you could regenerate. That was the time where you could cut the fat on the whole week. You could get through all the articles, all the TV shows, your DVR queues, all that, and feel like you're ready to attack the next week with an empty stock left behind. That is not the case anymore. Weekends are now the things where you don't get anything done. You get things done with your family, but it's all focused on the child. And that is great. Again, it's great. I'm not saying it negatively, but I'm just talking here, folks. This is therapy, okay? So you end up getting to a point, you get up, and maybe the night before on Friday, you drank some wine, which you don't do during the week. So maybe you didn't quite get the great night of sleep. Maybe you ate the entire burrito from the local Spartan Grill when you should have maybe had 3/4. So you're a little full, you're a little edgy, you had the wine, you're going to end up having the coffee. Maybe you're not going to eat on the same schedule. And on Saturdays, we go to swim class, which is at 9:30 a.m. So we got to be out of the house by about 9:05. Now, if dad wants to get his coffee on the way, we got to be out at 9. But I can't appear to mom as if the coffee is the driving principle of why we're getting out there early, because then that turns back on dad. And then dad has to get it afterwards. And then it becomes this whole discussion, if you will. It gets a little funny out there. You know how it is, folks. Marriages are funny. They're a constant roommate. You love the person, but sometimes those you love the most, you know each other's foibles, you know each other's downsides as much as anybody else. And when those things appear, you tend to over-exaggerate upon them on both sides, especially her to me, but me to her as well. It's just what we do. We always joke, I call my wife Dwellany, because she thinks too hard on things. She's constantly going over in her mind if she did the right thing before, what the right thing is in the future. Is what we're doing affecting our child sleeping and falling asleep a half hour later? It's this whole constant discussion where you feel like you're the force that's doing bad in the world, and it's bad. That's why we call her Dwellany, because she's doing great stuff. Where on the other hand, I just forget everything. I just keep a blank slate in my mind at all times, and nothing affects me. I probably remember 1 out of every 5 things I need to, and I should remember probably 3 or 4, or I should remember all 5. But by not remembering those other 4, I'm having a calm mind. I'm keeping cool. I'm having a good time. But it gets in trouble because my wife is a stickler. She keeps the lists, and you know how that goes. But on the weekend, it's amazing how you just go from activity to activity. It's almost this game to make sure that you're keeping your child hyper engaged so that you can get them to nap easier, and so you could get them to sleep at night easier. It's almost like having an animal where you kind of run them ragged so that they sleep a lot. And I think it's kind of funny. And then you get nervous that, say they're not falling asleep for their nap. You're going, oh my gosh, I don't think we did enough with them. I don't think we had them run around enough. So it's interesting because you'll get up on that Saturday, and then it all becomes about, all right, getting the child ready, brushing his teeth, giving him whatever medicine he might have, doing the putting his clothes on, or do we not put his clothes on because he's going to swim? Knowing you got to put the swim clothes on for swim, then you got to pack the whole bag for what he's going to wear afterwards. Making sure he's got his snack, and this is on a Saturday, so there is no downtime because then you come downstairs and then it's kind of playing a little bit, then it's getting breakfast ready, and then before you know it, it's time for swim, and then you go to swim. And for me, if I take him to swim on my own, I will have things saved on my iPhone and my pocket queue to read while he's in swim. If I go with my wife, she will say, are you watching him? Are you making sure that he's not hitting other kids on the step? Are you looking at him when he looks at us through we're like the animals in the zoo, the parents. We're behind this glass enclosure. And then as the kids are taken through the pool on by their teachers, maybe they'll be on their back or they'll be on their stomach floating with a little barbell thing. And it becomes this thing where, again, we're like the animals, but we're in the glass, and we're the ones that the swimmers are looking to engage with. So like if you're looking at your phone and your son looks up at you to wave or to seek assurance, if you're not looking at him, you get in trouble. So that becomes a game. So I'm sitting there, and I probably haven't had my coffee yet because we didn't leave early enough for me to get it beforehand. So I'm sitting there with a feeling of, I'm not hungover, but I'm just like, I got a little tip of the flu, if you will. And I'm just kind of sitting there, and you got the hot air from the water coming through, and then you're in this glass enclosure with the other parents. You're watching your kid to make sure he's not hitting kids on the steps. And if he does hit kids on the steps, you have to leave the glass enclosure to go, apparently, I guess my wife would say, yell at him to not do it. But even though he knows better, then you're making sure you're sitting there. You're making sure on the off chance that he looks up at you in the glass enclosure, you can wave. So you're sitting there, you're not looking at anything. Plus there's no internet access in there. It's one of those things where it's like 1X on the Verizon. So now you're just sitting there. Then you're done. Then you got to figure out how to fight to get one of the little rooms where you could change them before the other families do. And then you get them changed, and now it's 10:15, and now either Dad's going to get his coffee, or we're going to decide that we're going to go to the park because we want to wear him down even more, especially as the weather gets better. Then before you know it, you're back home, and you're maybe a half hour until lunchtime. Then you get to lunch, you move through that, and then it's wind down time for a 1 p.m. nap. So you've gone this whole morning, and you haven't really engaged with anything. Now, I used to, when I had the energy and the verve, I used to get up on the earlier side before he would and go work out at the gym or work out in our basement, and I would get some reading done there. I would get a lot of my personal stuff done, but I would find it would just wear me down too much. And you get to a point as a parent, someone who's married, who has a job, where you got to conserve your rest. You have to almost bank it. I remember hearing Steve Nash talk about this, where he almost banked naps and sleep as something you could almost spend down later, right? So you almost go out of your way to take a nap today, not because you're necessarily tired, but you want to get 2 to 3, well, not that would be a long nap. You want to get like 1 to 2 hours banked. So if you don't get a ton of sleep that night, it's not going to destroy you. You're not going to have drawn down your account of sleep down the road. And I find with my commute, with the fact I get up 2 to 3 days during the week, really early, 5 a.m. to go work out, you got to get your sleep when you can. So you just got to stay in bed and you got to sleep. I mean, the last couple days, for whatever reason, we've actually slept till about 7:30, which is a total shock in our household, because during the week, I'm either getting up at 5 or I'm getting up at 6:30, depending on if I work out. So you got to bank that sleep. So I'm banking it. So basically I'm waking up on a Saturday or Sunday and being dropped off right into the child slide. You know what I mean? You're jumping right in that slide. You're jumping right into parenthood. Again, love it. But I'm just trying to explain how this whole how this whole deal works. You really do love it. But I got to be maybe more disciplined about getting up earlier again, or find a way to bank my sleep. I've been staying up late lately to watch different shows, to watch the NBA Finals, which go on so late now and have been extended to a Game 5. We'll see how that goes tomorrow night. Again, we're taping this on the Sunday, June 11th. But you get to this point, and then you put him down at 1, and you hope he goes all the way till 4. And during that 1 to 4 period of time, it's like getting dropped off at Disney World. You're running around, you're trying to do a podcast, you're trying to read, you're trying to work out, you're trying to conserve the time in it so that you don't have flow over time that's jumping into it. And then on the occasion where he gets up early, you're like, oh man, there that goes, and you didn't get the 4 other things you need to get done. It's a crazy scramble, because then he gets up, best case scenario 4, he's out, he's eating at 5:30, you're winding down around 6 to playing, doing all that stuff. Then after 7, it's bath time, and then the night routine. Then he's down at 8, and then you get your time back again. But sometimes you're not doing things like reading or work or podcasting or whatever your kind of joy in life is, whatever the thing you go to when you truly want to express yourself to the world or consume whatever the world has to offer you that you enjoy. Sometimes the optimal point for that is not when the time is open to do it, and it becomes twice as hard. I always thought when I would work out at night during the week, before I realized working out in the morning is the best thing no matter how you cut it. When I would work out at night, it was like twice as hard because I was exhausted. I had gotten up early. My coffee buzz had worn away, and that coffee buzz is important for my workout. And I don't want to take more coffee at night because it feels like you're just jamming it in just to jam it in. It doesn't taste good. Your body's like, I got too much caffeine today, but it's worn down. You go to work out. Maybe you're not at the point where you've eaten recently, because I don't want to eat too close because I'll be eating dinner after. And so your workout ends up being twice as hard. And that's one of the difficult things with not having the time be yours anymore, is that you can't define when those important times to do things for their optimal purpose are. So for me, it might be doing it in the morning. That's when my mind is racing, when I'm really going with it. I want to work out, I want to podcast, I want to work, I want to do all this. Because late in the day, everything becomes twice as hard. It's a very difficult thing. I mean, you look to like a Sunday morning today. My routine on a Sunday morning, I make the pancakes, and those pancakes end up being his joy on that Sunday morning, my son's joy, and then I make enough that he has them for school on Monday and school on Thursday. That's sort of the routine. He loves having his pancakes before school. Knowing he's getting his pancakes makes it easier to get him in the car to go to school. But what I do is I listen to The Economist while I'm making the pancakes, and then I'm making my French press coffee. I'm grinding it down. And of course, if I'm spending too much time on that, I'm hearing, hey, are you going to be making the pancakes or what? And you're like, I just want to be left alone for a minute. All right. I just want to do it, man. So I'll listen to The Economist. I'll get through a couple of good articles from that. Then, I subscribe to this great newsletter called The Sunday Long Read, and it's by Don Van Natta Jr., who is the investigative reporter at ESPN of all places. But he has a real appreciation for long-form journalism. And so on Sunday, he and another guy, I forget who it is, but I think it's from Sports Illustrated too, they will release the Sunday Long Reads, and it comes out as a newsletter, and you get all of their curated list of the best long read articles from the past week. The best articles maybe that further describe something that happened in the week, but it was from an article that was from months ago, days ago, years ago, that helps explain it better. And it's a really nicely well done thing. I love getting it, but I'll tell you what, I only read it to see what I'm not going to be able to read about, or I hope that I've read several of the articles and then I can feel like I'm not missing out on it. But I look at it on that Sunday morning with my coffee buzz rolling after listening to some economist. I made pancakes, and you think the world is yours. And I'm like, oh man, I could totally clear this whole Sunday long read list. Yeah, not happening. Because especially they tell you in the Sunday long read as well, they tell you how long on average it's going to take you to finish each article. And so I'll often pocket them to my Pocket Queue, my save later application. You could use any other save laters, but that's really the best one, Pocket. So I'll pocket it, and then weeks later I'll see these articles and I'm like, what the hell is this from? And then it was from the Sunday long read from like a month ago. You just don't get through them. It's very, very difficult. And I've come to a point where we're sort of on the precipice where it's time to think about another child. And it makes you sit on your hands because selfishly you're saying, wow, this only doubles up the time that you're engaged and not able to do your own pursuits. And it sounds so selfish. I mean, my brother just had his second child. He had a daughter about 5 months after Liam was born, and now he just had a second daughter. And I'm just looking at him holding his second daughter when I went to visit him in the hospital. And I'm thinking, wow, amazing responsibility and an amazing time suck. And I should call this episode, I love my son, or I'm not trying to talk badly about something. We all go through this. These are all the things we work through. And I think it really crystallizes why it's so important in life to do what gives you the greatest joy at work. Because I'm sitting here saying, how do I get to do my personal pursuits on the margins of days when I have a child, when I'm married, when I have a job? And I really like my job, but it's not my passion. So when you have children, when you're married, when you get the responsibilities, it is so important to find your passion in your job, because that is an 8-hour get out of jail free card in a way. It's not the thing if you can treat your job as the thing you really want to be doing, then you're going to go home with nothing on your mind left to do. There are no alternate pursuits to do. You are doing your pursuit, and you should have exhausted it in those 8 hours a day. I mean, that's really where you want to get to. I remember when I worked at the Nets, that was how it was. I remember going home at night going, I feel 1,000% fulfilled right now because I was writing about the NBA. I was sitting in practice. I was going to a game, and I had exclusive access where I'm walking into locker rooms. I'm talking to coaches. They all know me. I know them. And I'm just living, breathing, digesting basketball all day. And it was fantastic. It was amazing. And I think you need to do that. It's so important. It crystallizes how much you have to do that when you don't have the time you did in your free time. Free time needs to be your free time. Your job needs to be your passion. And that really hits home. And I often wonder, do I need to push the envelope at this point in life to flip the apple cart over, to upset that apple cart, to get into the profession that is my passion now? How can I get involved with podcasting or entrepreneurial journalism? Bill Simmons, Colin Cowherd, all these people you really enjoy. How do you get in there? And a lot of times it means starting at the bottom. And starting at the bottom means you're going to take a major hit to the salary you were having, which now means, am I going to have to move? Am I going to have to downsize? Is my wife going to have to keep her job now longer than she would have? Do we think about having another child? How will we move this whole house if we downsize? Are we moving to California? Are we moving to Florida? Where are we moving to? Do we have to start at the bottom of the chain somewhere else? Are we willing to give it all up for one person in that relationship's passion? I mean, am I willing to move everybody if I can get in at the ground floor where I really want to be at this point in life? And I'm not speaking bad about my job. I really enjoy my job. But we all get to a point. We reach middle age in all different things. We call it like the midlife crisis, right? But the midlife crisis doesn't mean it has to be midlife. It could be the midlife of school. It could be the midlife of a job, of a certain job. 10 years at a job is a long time. It makes you start to want to kick the dirt up under the water, to see the sediments and see how they now fall. We're different people 10 years later. But you add so many responsibilities to the mix that you can't quite imagine. You can upset the apple cart when it's you, when you're the only one who can get the deleterious effects of that decision. But when others are hitched to your wagon, which I always wanted, it's what I want, but when others are hitched to your wagon, it changes what you can and cannot do. And more than ever, you need somebody to almost come out of the woodworks to take the chance on you, to see your true value in a certain realm, even if it's not exactly the realm you're working in. But you need them to say, it's going to be okay, it's going to work out. But then those people don't really want to take that chance on somebody who has a wagon hitched to their wagon, right? Because you're nervous if you go all out for them, and then all of a sudden the person's out. They have to be with sick kids. They have to, they have so many other responsibilities. It's a difficult place to be. And a lot of times you get far into a job, you move up the pay scales in that job, and you move to another kind of business. If you can get people to buy into you, that you're the right person for a position, even though you don't have the experience in that exact realm, you're going to start at the bottom. And are you going to move back up? Is money important? Is it important to live where you are? I don't know. I go through these things all the time. And that's one of the issues when you think about having another kid. Just there's so many parameters and variables moving around with the decision. And all you want is what is best for those little guys. You just want to be in or little girls. You want to be in the perfect position for yourself, but you want them to be perfect. And somebody's always going to take some concession somewhere to make one of the unit's dreams come true. And what are dreams coming true? If you get your dream job, what does that mean if now your partner is in a position where they don't have a new job, they're living in a new place? If your kids are now in a place where, because you're making less money, you need to live in a community that is maybe lower income, that maybe they're not in the same school system they would have been if you had the other job. There's just so many angles to this that you can't truly take the leap you want to unless it's a really good position to do so. It's difficult. And I'll tell you what, for me, one of the difficult things with those periods of time where you're all engaged as the parent, right? When you're with your son. And I like a lot to go out to parks or to go places, to go to coffee place, because at least it keeps engagement. It keeps other people involved. There's people at the park. There's people at the restaurant. But for me, my mind is always running. Ideas are continually flowing through it constantly. And when that happens, I just want to take out my smartphone to research the kind of the path I'm going in my mind on whatever I'm thinking about. Or I want to take notes, and because how often do you forget what you were just thinking 10 minutes ago? You think in the moment how important it is. You're like, I'll remember it. Then 10 minutes ago, the context of the moment has changed. You don't even remember. I want to sometimes go down the rabbit holes because that's where I find connections. A lot of times you don't see the connections in things until you go so deep that the connections are at a subterranean level, or you find a way to connect them at a subterranean level. I mean, you really do lose a bit of the spontaneity, and how you get that back is hard. I mean, today, for instance, it's a Sunday morning. It's going to be 90 today. It's already like 86. Well, it's 3:00, so it's already 86. It's hot. It's hot for up here. Up in the mountains, when it gets near 90, it's brutally hot. And so my wife said, well, it's a Sunday morning. Let's go to my mom's. Her mom is a 15-minute ride away from us to the west. Let's go to my mom's. We'll go to her beach. She lives in a lake community, and so they have beach access. And my wife was saying, she's got badges for us. We should be using it. We could use the park there. And my mind is like, no. I love it, but like even me, my wife's grown up in that house her whole life, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, it's just my mind knows the connection there. It's not something new. And I said, let's just go on a whim. Let's go somewhere else. And my wife's like, why? I don't know. And I was like, I just want to do it. I just want to be spontaneous. And I had remembered when I took 2 days off myself, March 30th and 31st at the end of March. And I just randomly started driving. And I remember coming down from Middletown, New York, because I ended up there somehow circuitously to watch the movie Get Out. And I remember coming down from there, and it took me through Northwest New Jersey, down through Vernon, down through the mountains to come to where I live in Sparta. And I remember I was just like, let's just go up towards Vernon. I love driving through the mountains, and it's only 24 minutes away from us to get up into these mountains, and there's this breathtaking scenery that's amazing to be that close to us. And so I'm looking online, and I found this park. It looked like a beautiful park. It had like tire swings, it had castles, it had all this stuff. And I was like, I was like, okay, this is it. Let's do it. I was like, I remember driving by there. And so we're on our way to the park, and we get close there, and my son's all excited. He's yelling park from the back. And we get to this baseball field where the park is. It says it's a veteran field in Vernon. And I look around, and I'm like, there's no park here. What the heck's going on here? And I'm looking at the picture. I said, look, here's the picture. Here's where we're standing. There's no park. And she's getting a little mad at me. She's like, we have to get him to a park. Let's ask somebody. And as a man, I don't want to ask a person a damn thing. I don't want to interact with people. I don't want to talk to them, especially if it's asking a stupid question about a park that is on the map here, but I don't see it anymore. Did something terrible happen at this park? Do I feel like am I an amateur even asking? I don't want to walk into a place as a guy and ask people about a park. I don't know why. And so she's getting mad at me about that. And I'm like, all right, let me park here. I'm going to walk around. I don't see anything. There is no sign of any park. And so there was a deli across the street, and she goes, drive there. And she goes, are you going in? I'm like, I don't want to go. She goes, I'll go in. And she just had surgery on Thursday, a scope on her knee. So she's able to walk. It's not quite as deep as she thought the surgery would be, but she's able to walk. But of course, she's really mad. She walks in, she comes out. She's like, no park. And I was like, oh, great. And now my son is expecting to go to a park. We had a 25-minute drive to get here. I was promising this amazing park, and I look like a failure. But I wanted spontaneity. It was a great drive. It was really cool to see new scenery, to see a new coffee shop that might have just opened in Vernon last week that you can aspire to go to at one point and be off the beaten trail, be off the beaten path. It's just something different. That's what I want. I want serendipity. I want spontaneity. I just want different experiences. If you just get caught into the same paths, nothing changes. Nothing new is brought into the mix. It's almost like immunity. Like if you don't change up a lot of different things, you're not diversified enough to have immunity to whatever could come at you. It's just important in life to change up. And so my wife, being a very resilient person, looks up on found a really cool park that was only 5 minutes away from where we were. So we went there. It was an okay park. The mountains were around us. The vista was really the part that was great about it. But there was almost like there was a little picnic area that was covered. And so we're imagining to ourselves, oh, we could always come here another time, get a picnic. There's these beautiful ball fields. There was this like kind of fitness trail that goes all around the different campuses of the ballpark. And it had all these different fitness stops on the way where you could do different things. And so it's a new experience. I've never been there. It's cool to open up your world and go somewhere else. And we had a great time. And then we come home refreshed, and it was fun. And yes, did I fail? Yes. Was there any record that this place had closed? No. Did my wife end up having to be forced to save the day? She wouldn't have had to be forced to save the day if we went to her mom's lake. We can always go to her mom's lake. I just wanted something new. Sometimes it goes wrong, but it's never a failure. It's never a failure. I'll tell you what, I've been really sick the last 2 or 3 months. I had done great all winter, pretty much. I had not gotten very sick. And you always think, oh my God, did I make it? You never make it though. Isn't that amazing? You never make it through a year. And so in April, I got this little tickle in my throat. And for me in the last couple of years, it seems, this little tickle in my throat, that's not like a sore throat, but it's a weird, like esophageal tickle almost. For me, that means something's coming. And it's never bad enough where you would go to the doctor while it's there. And you always go, well, maybe this time it's not going to lead to something. And then it always leads to something. It's awful. It always leads to some terrible thing. Winter is coming, as they would say. It's going to be real bad. And so in April, I had this tickle and I was doing okay. And then one Friday I went into work, and it's actually funny. My 2 sicknesses over the last couple of months have been when my wife was away. So she's away, like spending her nights out, having to conduct and do all these music things and really be the one. She has multiple sclerosis and she's out there pushing the envelope, and nothing happens with her. She does fine. The time before, she went to Atlantic City for a couple nights for a music educators conference. And both times I got just massively ill. I got so sick. And on the Friday in April, I go to work and I'm just feeling like garbage. I am down. I am out. You know, when you're so dazed, it's almost like you're concussed. You can't really just do a thing. And it means like the wiring's overheating, which means there's a fever. And I'm fine. I actually did a podcast that morning. I don't know how I got through it. I guess when you believe or convince yourself that you're not sick, you just do it. But then I said to myself, I just got to go to the doctor. When I got to go to the doctor, that means it's bad. And so I go to the doctor and she takes my temperature and she goes, oh my God, 102.3. When your fever is the same number as like a really good FM radio station, you're in a lot of trouble. And so she's like, wow. And you went to work today? And I go, yeah. She's like, all right, you're going to head right to the pharmacy. You're going to pick up this intensely potent antibiotic. It's like the super antibiotic. And you're going to go home and you're not going to come out until Monday. And this was Friday. And so I said, oh, okay. Now, I don't know about you, but first of all, my wife never gets sick enough where she's out like that. And I don't even know how it would deal. I love being with my son, but to constantly be the one who's his caretaker at every meal, at every step of the way, that's some hard stuff. And she never gets to that point. And I got to that point. And I literally had to come home. I locked myself away we have a home that's built for a growing family. So on the upstairs, we have we have 4 bedrooms. We have the master where my wife and I sleep. We have sort of a nursery type room where Liam is still sleeping. And then we have another bedroom on the other side of the house that's sort of it's sort of like a junior master. And then we have a room right in the middle there. They're nice rooms. So my sick room is that room on the other side of the house. It's actually my old bed set from growing up in Mawa. My parents let us take it and set that room up. So I just lock away in there and I just go to sleep. Now, usually when I'm told to go away, I'm well enough where at least laying in bed and like binge watching something. I can only binge watch TV now, by the way, when I'm sick, because you just can't binge anymore. It's too hard. Like when a show is 40 minutes or an hour, you maybe get through one and then you maybe don't get to it again for another week or 2 weeks. There's no continuity. But when you're sick and you're locked away and there's no chance that you're going to even be able to be around your child or be around your wife, you're just there. But I was so sick. I was first of all diagnosed with this terrible sinus infection. I never got sinus infections growing up. And it was this sinus infection where the entire left side of your face was shot. Like your eyeball felt like it was coming out on the left side. I hate this joke, but you almost feel like Glenn from Walking Dead, right? Which I'll get to in a sec. But it was awful. It was just like, it was mind numbing how bad it was. I mean, it was terrible. I couldn't exist. Nothing could happen. I couldn't even watch stuff. Like I was locked away with this awful, awful headache. Now it did reside by Saturday. And I'll tell you what I did. That was my binge watching of Narcos. I cleared Narcos season 2, which I'd been waiting to do forever. Very good season. The big reveal in that show, I never realized that Narcos meant it was an anthology and then it was going to move on to the next Narcos. I thought it was just the Pablo Escobar story. So that's really cool to have seen that at the end, that it's just going to move to other Narcos groups. That was a really good show. But I can only binge watch when I'm sick. It's the only way it works. Now, coming back was tough. It took like a good week to come back from this one. It was so awful. And it is just impossible to parent when you're recuperating like that. I mean, it's terrible. You wake up each day feeling at a deficit, feeling at the bottom of a well, and you just have to, you have to suck it up and find a way to get your son ready for the day, dress him, get him fed, get him to school. Look, I'm not in Syria having to raise a family in wartime. Okay. I understand that. This is total first world problems, but when you're on your own like that, you're just shot. And I only got one. I know, but it took like a good week. And so I'm sitting there going, all right, at least I got that out of my system. We're done with that. A month later, the tickle comes back and it's sitting there for a week. My son, during this period of time, had a hacking cough. And it's awful when little kids have a hacking cough, when toddlers have this cough, because they don't understand what the hell is going on with this cough. And it's just overwhelming their entire being, and you just feel so terrible. But he had this hacking cough. And then at the end of the week, almost like The Walking Dead, like catching something from a walker, I start getting the hacking cough. And it's getting out of control. The cough is just, it's overwhelming me. It's painful. Nothing's coming up. It's like a cough because of a cough, because you've upset your whole, your whole lungs and your esophagus. You almost have set it to the point where it thinks there's something there. So I go to the doctor again and they're like, oh, it's acid reflux. And I'm like, what the acid reflux? What am I, 55? Acid reflux? So a part of me, this is the part that almost I don't like going to doctors, because I feel like sometimes they're doing their best with the information they have. And if you don't have other symptoms that are obvious, they say these things and you're like, you can't take that back. You said I have acid reflux. You're saying now I have to change my entire diet, when I eat, what I eat. I got to take pills before I do it. And I'm like, this just feels so draconian. This feels so final. Like, what the heck, acid reflux? I can go a year without feeling anything at night, without feeling the heartburn, without feeling it. And it's crazy because the one night I did feel like I got strep throat. So I woke up and it was gone. I mean, it was a terrible time. You're getting the chills at night, all this. And so they're like, acid reflux. I'm like, what the heck? And so I'm fighting it. I can't stop the coughing though. I can't stop, especially at night. And it overwhelms your being. And it's like that huge, terrible, terrible hacking cough that like brings your lungs with it. And I just, as it goes though, sometimes you think you go to the doctor too early before any other symptoms show themselves. And I'm like, how is this tied to acid reflux? It doesn't make sense. And you just don't want to be told you can't eat pizza at 8 p.m. anymore, or you can't have beer, or you can't have coffee as much, or you got to take it easy for 8 weeks on certain things. You're just like, this doesn't feel right. I mean, maybe I get a hint of something here or there, but I don't eat that badly. We're eating like quinoa chili and all this stuff. It drives me nuts. It was like that time when Howard Stern was talking about when he was so into wine, and he would have this wine on the weekend and it was all he talked about. And then he comes in on the Monday and he's like, I went to the doctor and I had this like, some test came up where he was high in something. And he's like, I don't even eat that bad. I'm like basically a vegetarian. I don't even eat. And then the doctor's like, do you drink wine? He's like, I do. And the doctor's like, well, maybe you can have like 4 to 6 ounces once a week. And he's like, what the hell? I'm so healthy. I work out. I eat nice. I don't even do that much. I can't have 2 damn glasses of wine on a Friday night or a Saturday night. This is bullshit. You know, that's what he's, and I kind of felt that way. I was like, we eat so well. What am I doing wrong? And I almost felt like making that prognosis, making that diagnosis. It goes to your very core in your being where you now feel like lesser of a person than you were the day before. And like all you wanted for them to say was, oh yeah, you have an ear infection or a sinus infection. Here's the antibiotic and you're good. And so I'm still at the point now where I'm like, I don't know if I have this. Now, last night I had a chicken schnitzel from this really good place and I was feeling a little funky, you know, in that esophageal tickle. But otherwise, I don't really know, but I got miserable. It was terrible. I got back to sleeping in another room. My sick binge television watching this time was catching up with Walking Dead. I totally lost the thread on that show in season 6. I just lost it. And the problem when you get behind on that show, the episodes get to the point where it feels like every other one is like 90 minutes or 60 minutes. And you're like, oh, it's just going to be too hard to fight back uphill to get to it. And so I totally lost the thread. I would have joy when you'd hear little reviews on Twitter or different things where like, oh, has Walking Dead lost the thread? And you're like, oh, thank goodness. At least it's gone downhill when I stopped watching. But I ultimately came back to the show. And sometimes when you watch an episode of something in that episode just turns the light switch back on for you and you go, okay, all right, I'm back. I'm in. And so I watched all of season 6 right into the ending of season 6 with the appearance of Negan. And that's one thing. All the different shows I watch or Twitter feeds I follow or Facebook or whatever, you got enough of a whiff of this Negan. You also got enough of a whiff of what Negan did to where I was spoiled the whole time. No matter how long ago I sort of heard what happened when Negan comes on the scene, it never went away. I always knew it was coming. And when you know it's coming, what actually happened in the final episode and then the first episode of season 7, you're like, oh wait, maybe that wasn't true. Maybe people were just kind of, maybe people were like catfish spoiling, you know, like they were saying something happened, but it wasn't really that, because there's a few things that happened first. But then no, it all comes into fruition, exactly what people said. But man, this Negan character, this is a career defining role for the actor, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Oh my God, is he good? He brings the show back to such a level that I can't stop watching it. And in the episodes where he's not in it, I'm almost bored. He steals the show in season 7. His coming on the scene is as career defining to me as Bryan Cranston playing Breaking Bad. And very similar, if I may say so too. Bryan Cranston was not in these sort of dark drama TV shows. He was in sort of comedic Malcolm in the Middle. You thought of him as the goofy dad, all this. And then he shows up on the scene in Walking Dead and just floors you with his descent into darkness. And he was sort of a dark character to start, so it's not like he was the Malcolm in the Middle dad initially. Maybe there were some signs of that. But the darkness unspooling in his soul through these seasons where he becomes just a criminal mastermind, the leader of almost a cartel, a genius of crime. I mean, oh my God, was it career defining, and it changed everything you thought about Bryan Cranston and opened up the door for him to do many other kinds of roles that maybe he wouldn't have done if he didn't get the chance. And he will never not be Walter White, Heisenberg. He'll never not be. And I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan is sort of in that same place. I remember him big time from when I would watch Grey's Anatomy with my wife, the show that I will famously tear at. It tugs at your heartstrings in those big moments with the music rising up and whatever whatever medical emergency is happening, lives and deaths and all this stuff. And he was in that. He was Denny, right? So then I see him pop up in The Good Wife, which we really love watching, and he's a love interest. He's a romantic, and he's really good in these roles. I always thought he was fantastic. And especially The Good Wife one. He's a cool guy. He's just a really cool guy. And so he shows up in this one. And when I heard he was going to be in it, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But I never read the comic book, so I didn't quite know what Negan was. And what Negan is one of the darkest characters, I think, in television history. First of all, he's like a mob leader, right? So he takes leadership by force. And at every step of the way, you're thinking every one of these characters could kill him and be done with it. And they never do. And he always survives. And he always has sort of the crowd mentality around him, the mob around him, making him stronger and stronger. And no one ever turns on him. And it would be so easy to kill him. But the fear he instills in people, it almost reminds me in these times of like a dictator, right? So you look at some of these dictators in these countries, and I always think like Kim Jong-un, right? Why isn't somebody just taking him out? I mean, he's this overweight, early 30s dictator who's living the high life, drinking his cognac, having his Western wives, and living the good life while his country is in abject poverty and they're not able to eat. And over years, the economy has fallen apart and they've devalued their money. And he's sitting there in his beautiful home and having his life and whatever he wants to eat and all this, and no one ever takes him out. And there almost becomes this learned helplessness around everyone, in everyone around him, where they're like, well, no one's ever taken him out, so he's only gaining strength. And now you can't take him out. And if we take him out, are all the people who are surrounding him, are they really going to fall if we take him out? Will they really be like, all right, thank God someone took him out? Or will they then fight back and will they take power? You just never know. And this Negan character takes you front and center, face to face with that level of terror, with somebody who takes leadership by force and subjects you and subverts you down below him and makes you like it and makes you eat it. And it's like, man, what would we do in that spot? And he's always going to job you. He's always going to do one more thing that only pushes you deeper and deeper into his level of complicity. You're like complicit immediately by being with him, and you never could turn on him. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing his character in this show. I mean, this is career defining. And the thing I love is 16, 18 million people are watching these episodes, and he's doing it on cable and he's doing it as dark as you can. When he came onto the show, it almost went from PG-13 to R. I mean, they're allowing him to curse. They're allowing him to push the envelope. And that's just, it's like his character. It's like almost how Donald Trump took over the establishment and has just flipped norms on their head, where for decades we've lived a certain way, we've talked a certain way, and he just shows up and changes the script. He changes the movie rating. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, this guy, whew, like the dread of having to submit to someone who takes a perverse joy in lording it over you. That's kind of how it is. It's the mob on steroids, and it's in an already lawless society, which makes it absolutely crazy. It's defining. And I'll tell you, like when I finished that season 6 on Netflix, I jumped right into the season 7, which is still available on AMC. But every one of these episodes or every other episode is like 60, 90 minutes. So it's taking forever to get through it. And it has the commercials when you watch it on AMC. And the other thing is the countdown. I have like 3 days left to watch 6 episodes. I've gotten through 10 of season 7. I love it. Whenever Negan's on the scene, I mean, I've kind of come to, it's funny in this world where there's all these zombies, right? These walkers. They're not even scary. Negan's the most frightening of them all. I mean, imagine Negan as a walker. Whew. I mean, it really is crazy how that happens. You start watching The Walking Dead in season 1, and you are in abject horror at the world and these zombies. But the zombies are actually harmless if you understand how to keep them at arm's length. If you understand how to kind of keep the whole herd from coming at you. And these people become very comfortable with killing in these shows. And I guess you have to at these levels. But the most frightening character in all of it is Negan. I mean, he has actually mastered even the walkers to do his bidding. It's fantastic. So then at the end of this sickness that I had, this next sickness, which was apparently acid reflux, but I don't know. I think it's allergies. I think I'm coming to learn, because then my son got sick again with the cough, and I took him to the doctor, and they're like, oh, these are allergies. So I'm sitting there going, wait a second. Is it acid reflux or is it allergies for me? And I'm just like, man, I'm hoping upon a hope, not going to what. I'm like, man, it's got to be allergies. Please, please, please. Of the A's, I'd much rather allergies than acid reflux. I don't want to have to flip my entire life of eating and drinking and all this when I'm not even that bad with it. I feel like I'm trying to convince you all of that, but it's not that bad. But so this thing got bad. This cough got terrible. And it's to the point where it's embarrassing, where you're just coughing and hack coughing like in public, and you're wondering how people are perceiving you. It's like, oh, is a sick person show up here? This isn't right. What's this person doing here? And so you don't really know how people perceive it. I worry about how people perceive me. I don't know why that is. But I go to the doctor again, and then they end up giving me this cough syrup after they gave me the acid reflux. And then my wife's like, you're just coughing way too much. I'm like, please leave me alone, Melanie. I don't want to go to the doctor. I hate going to the doctor. I just want to get better on my own. I want to suffer in silence and just let the recuperative powers of my body, which is terrible. I got this thing called chronic benign neutropenia, which means that you have a naturally occurring low blood cell count, like very low. And so white blood cells are the things that help you heal once you are sick. They don't make you more sick. They don't make you more prone to be sick, but once you are sick, they're the things that fight the sickness back. I don't have many of those. I have like a very, very low count. So it takes me forever to get better. And so I'm like, just leave me alone. I can't get, I just want to be better on my own. I just want to suffer in silence. I hate going to doctors again and again. I just feel like, I feel like I'm like pushing the envelope, and I don't like that. I don't need that. But we were going away to my sister's graduation up at Bard in Red Hook, New York. It was about 2 hours, 15 minutes north of New York City, straight up the Hudson River. So it's funny that, New York City is the Hudson abuts it on the western side. You go straight up 2 hours, 15 minutes. You're up in the Hudson Valley. You're up at Bard College, and there's a lot of nice towns along the water there. But we had to go up there, and I was sick as a dog with this cough. And when we were going up there, I was thinking, man, months leading up, I said, Mom, can we just like get a hotel and we can all hang out together then, and we can celebrate, but then we don't have to drive the 2 hours back home at night with the child. We could go out to eat. Maybe you could watch our son so we could go out on the town, Melanie and I, and actually have a night out on our own. And so we couldn't get a hotel because we're too late, as my family always is. We're never good planners like that. And so she said, well, your brother Tom, so my brother Tom graduated Bard 2 years ago, but he still lives up there, and he manages the front desk at like a local boutique hotel. I think these gay guys from New York City own this boutique hotel up there. Really nice. I'd like to stay there at some point. He manages the hotel. It's in the town of Hudson, which is about an hour or about 30 minutes north of Bard. So it's even more north then. So my mom says, well, hey, Tom is not going to be in his apartment that night. Why don't you guys stay in his apartment, and then Dad and Mike, my brother Mike, and his toddler, and this was right before his wife had their second child, they can stay in Maeve's apartment, which is in the town of Rhinebeck. So they're about 35 minutes apart, right? So we're already getting to a point where it feels like my mom is trying her best she's trying to make the best of a stretched situation. So we can't get a hotel, but she doesn't want to admit failure and tell us we need to go home, even though I wish she did. I just wish she said to go home, because then it puts me in a spot where I'm now covering for my family making a bad decision. So she says, why don't you stay in Tom's apartment? It'll be really cozy. You and Melanie can stay in his bedroom. Liam we can put his pack and play in the front room. It'll be great. And so I said, oh, okay. And I'm just taking her word for it, because your mom should be honest with you. Now we get to the point where we're done with the graduation. So it was a 2 p.m. Graduate, or 2:30 or something, to get there at 2:30. And it went on for some time. Now, it was neat. John Lewis gave the commencement address, which was really great. The congressman who survived Selma, of all places. I mean, just a very inspiring figure. And then Leon Botstein, who's the president, he has this very interesting speaking cadence, where he is the person who knows everything going on in the world right now. And it's very slow and professorial and just interesting. And so it's going on forever. Now, one of the nice moments, back like 3 years ago when the kids were freshmen in this class, 2 kids were run down. They were killed, run over on Route 9 and died. And their parents accepted their degrees, honorary degrees, 3 years later. So it was something to see the parents walk up there on stage and just imagine how their lives have been since that moment, and then coming face to face again with it now, and then just how they go on with their lives. I don't know how people do it. When we talk about a kid, and I talk about my life before, about how much I don't have the time, I still could never imagine, oh man, the pain, the internal horror of that. Oh, but it was an uplifting moment to see those parents come up and accept those degrees just as if they were one of the students. I mean, that's a nice thing. But there was a moment where this president, Leon Botstein, was speaking, and he was sort of given this address about, now this is a very liberal college. I mean, in some ways, this is like the editorial board of the New Yorker, right? There's always things from, I feel like a lot of people from Bard have written in the New Yorker, Leon Botstein's been written about. It's a lot of the same policies and principles of liberal democracy. Now, he starts speaking about how it's important for these students and this class in society to gird themselves against the dark headwinds coming, and very much a kind of a speech of to be prepared for these elements that are ripping apart our societies, like Donald Trump. All of a sudden, my wife and I and son were walking back from across the street, which is behind the stage. And all of a sudden we're walking, and then someone comes walking behind the stage and yells, "Enough of this bullshit. Make America great again." God damn it. And he's screaming. He had had enough, because you never think of the fact that what this president is saying is destroying the heart of what this MAGA, Make America Great Again movement believes in. They don't believe Donald Trump is destroying the fabric of society. They think he is renewing it and regenerating it for a new future. And so it was something. And I'm sitting there going, didn't this guy, who's obviously here to see someone graduate, I mean, he was dressed nice, he had a tie, didn't he realize what he was coming to? And now you've gone and made this about yourself? Just listen in silence. You know, there's times we have to watch Fox News. Just listen in silence. I mean, wow. Interesting to not realize who the audience is here. But it was funny then, because he's walking back behind the stage, and there's another parking lot back there, and all these people are kind of following him and walking down, and they're yelling at him, "Trump's a lunatic." And it's like, don't do that. Stay cool, dude. It was like a liberal army coming at him. But then it was a little funky, because then some media member stops him and is talking to him for like 15 minutes. So this guy has effectively made the graduation of kids about himself. And I saw someone say to me, well, what about what the kids did at Notre Dame to Pence? And I would say, sure, that is a bit of a that's a bit bad. But I'll tell you what, at least they're the students. At least they're making the decision on their own graduation day. I mean, if that's how they feel and they want to give up their own graduation day to walk out, that to me is standing up for something. Someone who comes as an outsider to an event to celebrate kids and then walks out making it about himself, and who's he changing? What mind is he changing there? He only looks like a fool. Unbelievable. But anyway, we finally get to the point where it's over, and we decided, let's go down to, well, we didn't decide. There was a reservation for an Indian restaurant down the road, about maybe 10, 12 minutes south of Red Hook, in the town of Rhinebeck, and it was this really good Indian restaurant. Now, it was a disaster for me. I guess I didn't drink enough water that day, and now I'm drinking Indian food, or eating Indian food, which is spicy and a little higher in salt, so you need extra water on top of it to kind of counteract the effects. Then I'm drinking some wine, and I just went to a bad place. I was dehydrated, all this, which only makes a cough that much worse. And so we get to the point at the end of the dinner, and my dad now is a free agent, in the sense that my brother Mike, with his toddler Eloise, picked up my dad on the way up to Bard to bring him to the graduation. And then my dad was figuring someone would take him home after the graduation. Now, we had all decided we're staying up there. Again, we had our plan. We were going to stay up at my brother Tom's apartment. My mom was going to stay up there too, and then my wife and I, Melanie, were going to go out on the town of Hudson. It's a nice little rejuvenating, reinvigorating Hudson River town. That same thing where you have the older buildings, and little wine bars and things like that. So we were going to delve and dabble into the town, just have a nice little night, low key, come back, fall asleep, but knowing my mom was there watching. Now we get to the point where my dad is like, well, no, I don't think you're going to want to go up there. He's trying to change the scale in his favor. He's trying to get us to convince to go home so that he could get home tonight or that night so that we could drive him home so he didn't have to stay up there in an apartment. I mean, it's really dark. And my wife, of course, is gullible and she's falling for it. She's like, well, maybe we should go. My dad's like, yeah, maybe you should. And I'm like, no, he's just doing this. So now we get to the point at this night where my mom then says, well, I'll call you guys. You guys go up there to Tom's apartment and I'll call you when we're done and we can decide what we're going to do. So now Melanie's like, wait a second. She's telling me, she doesn't say it's the family. She's like, wait a second. I thought the whole point was we were coming up here so we could go out together and we could actually spend time together. And I go, you're right. Yes. Let's see where we are. And I was like, but my dad is really being difficult here. My mom's going to probably have to stay at my sister Maeve's apartment in this town where this Indian restaurant was. So now he's sort of made it about him and he's taken over the night a little bit. But I said, you know what? It'll be nice. We could still go up there. I don't want Liam. It's already it's already like 7:15, 7:20. If we drive home, that's 2 hours. Who knows when he goes to sleep? You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. At least if we go to this place where Tom's apartment is, crazy. It was 35 minutes north of where we were, that was an awful ride. Going all that way north while my son is like kind of losing his shit a little bit because it's bedtime. But I was like, well, at least we can get him to bed at his normal time. Now, when we're going home or we're going to this apartment in Hudson, the intensity of the day, the dehydration, the food kicking in, the wine, it starts getting to me and I'm coughing as hard as I've ever coughed. My wife is driving. She's basically crying about how bad this is going to be because there's no second room. There's no second bedroom on the other side of the house where I can go hide. We were all going to be in the vicinity in an apartment in like a 1800s building, by the way, with very loud wooden floors and echoes and all that stuff. So it was not going well. And I'm in a corner now because I've made the decision that we're staying up there. And we get up there and it's 3 stories. There's no elevator. We got to walk up these long wooden stairs. I'm carrying pack and plays up. We could only get parking like, maybe a tenth to 2/10 of a mile away. I'm carrying the stuff on the main road there. It's a main little road in Warren Street in Hudson. And I'm going up and again, up the 3 floors. I'm coughing like a madman. I'm losing my mind. It's just ugly. It was terrible. And I'm like, man, this is a mistake. And I can't quell the cough. I just can't stop it. We get up into the apartment. It was like the apartment was set up from 1880. There's no modern couches. The bed was kind of modern. There's like wooden, there's like hard German wooden chairs everywhere. So we weren't even going to be able to watch anything. My brother has no TV in this apartment because he's a millennial and they just watch things on their iPad. I don't even think he has cable. And there is no blinds in the room that my son was supposed to sleep in. And we're dealing with the days being extremely long. So light is pouring in. There's noise from the streets below as people are reveling in the night. There's yelling in the apartments. And I am now trying to hold the line in this argument that this was a good idea. And it is not going well as I can't even finish my, argument as I'm hacking up 3 lungs. And it's ugly. So we get to the point where we're going to set up the pack and play in the room that we are going to sleep in. And my son will not go down for like 35 minutes. He's screaming for his mom. He's upset. It's kind of hot up there. There's not really air conditioning. It was a bad moment. And he will not go to bed. And every time he has breakout cries, and my wife's like, I can't believe we did this. I can't believe we did this. And a part of me is like, I totally understand you, but we're stuck now. Let's make the best of it. Let's make the most of it. We're not in a terrible, terrible situation. We're in a tough situation. And then when she gets the word that my mom is not going to be coming up, so we're not going out and we have nowhere to sit to watch stuff. I'm coughing up. I can't stop. It was a bad situation. So then I finally take my cough medicine and we decide, all right, let's go to bed. We go to bed. I can't stop coughing. I lose it. I'm just losing it, which will wake up my son, which will drive my wife nuts. And I said, I'm just going to sleep in the other room. So I then go to the room where my son was supposed to sleep. Hardwood floors. There's no extra mattresses. My mom brought an air mattress that she was going to sleep on when she was going to come up and hold the fort down so my wife and I could go out. But that was still in her car, 35 minutes south. So we didn't even get that. I got a couple of blankets and some old pillows, and I just slept on this hardwood floor, and I just said, you just got to make it through to the morning. It was one of the most awful nights of just situation I've ever had. Again, a charmed life for me, if that's the worst the night's ever been. Granted, I will give you that, but it still was the worst. And it's nothing against my brother. My brother has a charming little apartment. I was imagining how his life is. I'm like looking in his cabinets, and I'm like, oh, who's coming up here? Like, what's his life like? Does he go to these little wine bars? Where does he go? It's such an interesting little world he has here in this very old building. And I'm losing it. So I'm trying not to cough. I can't hold it in though. It's just out of control. I'm hearing people scream at each other on the first floor of this building. And I'm like, please don't wake anyone up. I don't care if my hell continues right now, but I just need to make it through to the morning. I just need to. And I barely could. I remember I fired up the Mark Maron episode with Dana Carvey from months ago, and I just tried to listen, and I just tried to get tired, and I just tried to see through to the point where I could close my eyes and fall asleep, and the coughing would stop. It was the most uncomfortable sleeping I've ever had. Again, hardwood floors. I had a blanket and a pillow, and it was ugly. It went from this amazing Memorial Day weekend where we were going to go out on this town, this hip up and coming town, and it was going to be great, to just this abject, awful night. Now, one of the funny little tie-ups here to finish this little episode, the town Rhinebeck we were in, right? I remember listening where we ate and where my sister Maeve has her apartment. I remember listening to an interview that Howard Stern did with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, the guy who plays Negan. And they got all into the fact that Jeffrey Dean Morgan lives up outside of Rhinebeck. He has a farm outside of Rhinebeck. And he and Paul Rudd bought this little candy and coffee shop in town called Samuel's Sweet Shop, because the longtime owner, I think, was down on his luck. He was older. Maybe he was losing money. And these guys, Paul Rudd lives around this area too. They actually live full time. It's a nice little village. They loved having the local feel of this little place in town here. And so they ended up in 2014, I think, buying the sweet shop. So they're the owners, and they will often come into the shop to get their coffee, candy, to check in on things. I mean, as the owners. And they apparently hired the long-term employee that had worked at Samuel's to kind of run it. Now, it was kind of neat because then I was like, oh, we could have gone there. Now I was so sick. But I looked it up on the map. It was literally across the street from the Indian restaurant we ate at. I was like, man, how about that tie-in with Negan owning the place in Rhinebeck? And then apparently Norman Reedus, who plays Daryl, got a place up there because of Negan. I guess in the show, he becomes so subservient to Negan that outside of the show, Jeffrey Dean Morgan was able to convince Norman Reedus to buy a place up there. But then Morgan's talking about how Juliana Margulies, his Good Wife co-star, how she has a place up there. And there's this kind of whole society, these people moving up there. So it's kind of cool. Right when you think you're in the middle of nowhere, it's not. It's really neat. And I would have thought how cool it would have been. So again, I was talking about going down rabbit holes and the subterranean connections. So I love the idea of this episode having the binge watching of Walking Dead, and then ending with the story of being in this little town where Negan owns the freaking coffee shop, the sweet shop. It's crazy. The one positive of all this sickness, I am down like 10 to 12 pounds on where I was before it started. There is some silver lining there. And I'm reading Warren Buffett's The Snowball book. I'm listening to it on tape. And I thought it was funny. He used to write $10,000 unsigned checks to his children. And if he was not under a certain weight that he said he had to be under by a certain date, they could sign the amount for the $10,000 checks and take the money. He never was underweight. That's an interesting little incentive. And he also paid his wife to stay 118 pounds. Very weird, but very effective and efficient. So, all right, folks. Thanks for listening. This was a lot here. I got a lot off my chest. And again, there will be another episode a little later tonight. So, over and out, my friends. This is Matt McQueenie, Mix Minus Podcast.